Hi. Good evening. Today we're learning Maseches Kesubos Daf Pei Hey and Daf Pei Vav Amud Aleph. We are starting about 10 lines down on Pei Hey Amud Aleph, continuing in our discussions as we started yesterday. The Gemara starts 10 lines down. Avimi Berei Rabbi Abo Havamaske Bezuze Bechozai. He owed money to someone in Bechozai. Bechozai was another city. So what did he do? Shadrinhu biyad Chama Berei Rabba Baravua. He sent money with his friend Chama, who was the son of Rabba Baravua. Azal, he went to Bechozai. Chama went to Bechozai, Par'inhu, and he paid the people who had lent money. Amar Lahu Havu Lishtara. He said to them, listen, I just paid you. Can you please give me an invoice marked paid so that you can't collect from me again? So Amrulay, they said, no, Sitroy Ninhu. This wasn't the primary shtar. There was actually a Sitroy. There was an ancillary deal that was made with no shtar, and that's the money that you just paid me. That's what Gemara says. There must have been two transactions, one with a shtar and one without. So then he went home empty-handed. He gave over all the money. Let's say he had to pay a couple $100, a couple $1,000. He came back to Avimi, and Chama says to him, I paid, but they said that you had another deal with him. So also the Kamed Rabbi Abo, Amar Le Islach Sade Deparatinu. Was there this case scenario where, in fact, there were witnesses that you actually were paid in the first place, that you got money, or that you paid him back for the other loan? Amar Le Lo, he says, no, there were no witnesses for that. So Amar Le, he says back to him, you have a big problem. Migu dichol lomar lo hayu dvar me'olam. Because they easily could have said, we never had any transactions with you. They can also argue that there was actually a second deal there. There's a migu that they can utilize. In short, let's review the story. One person sent his friend down to pay the lenders, and the lender says, thanks for paying me, but this isn't for the contract with the shtar. It's for the verbal contract that we had on the side. You wouldn't know about it. And he takes the cash and comes back without a shtar. So now the Gemara wants to know, what is the halachic burden on the messenger? The messenger, Chama in this case, went down to Bechozai, and he went down with a bag of cash, and he came back empty-handed with no shtar. We don't know what happened to the money that Chama had. Chama said he gave it to the people who he was supposedly supposed to pay back, but there's no paperwork to show. So what is the burden on that person, on the shaliach? That's what the Gemara wants to know now, a third of the way down. In regards to whether or not the shaliach should pay for what happened, what is the deal? So Amar Rav Ashi says, Chazin, and it depends. If in fact what was told to him by the messenger was shkol shtara v'havzuza, first get a shtar and then pay, okay, then he's guilty, mishalim. But if he said havzuze, first give over the zuz, and then afterwards shkol shtara, then he didn't do anything wrong, then lo mishalim. And the Gemara rejects Rav Ashi and says, velohi, that's not correct. Bein kach u'bein kach mishalim seems to be that this shaliach will be held accountable for his messengership because he did a poor job. Damar le litkune shidarticha. I sent you to fix a problem, velo la'avasi, and not to make things more difficult for me. And that's how the Gemara, yes, thank you. That is how the Gemara seems to conclude. Can't use these on Yom Kippur. We have a bit of a problem here. Oh. To use a cough drop on Yom Kippur? Wow. It's amazing that you've learned 1,000 plot of shots. Amazing. $9.99. Yeah. Hashem should bless you. Yeah. Yeah, you got a bracha today. So the Gemara actually concludes that, and this is very strange. It's not strange, I guess I understand it, but there's this kind of paradox of being a shaliach where you can easily be on the hook simply because of a technical thing that came up. You went down there to go be a messenger to pay back someone. He gave you $1,000 in cash. Phil, go pay this guy. I go down there and I come back. I say, I paid him. He says, where's the paperwork? I said, no paperwork. He said, forget it. Yeah, that's not on me. That's on you. And the Gemara concludes this way, and it seems that it's quoted in the Rambam this way as well. If you look in the sources here, it seems to be this way in Hilchos Shluchim, which is a section of the Rambam, and that seems to be the case. So if you are ever asked to be a messenger for money, get all of the rules clear, because otherwise you could be on the hook in Bezdin for the money that you were supposed to deliver if you don't come back with the paperwork. I guess your boss could also quote this: always get receipts. Yeah, in the OU, if I don't give a receipt, they are not giving me a reimbursement. So I always have to come up with a receipt. Have I ever created an invoice on my own? Yes, I have. Absolutely. 100%.
You know you're being recorded.
I'm being recorded. Hello, Rabbi Howard. It's good to see you. Yeah, no, I mean, there's always a paper trail. We go back to the credit cards that are, what?
It's under duress.
It's under duress. I know. David is threatening me.
But it's an OU computer.
Oh, it's an OU computer. That's actually very true. It is an OU computer. How did you know that? Okay, very good. Says the Gemara at the 2 dots, third of the way down. Hahi itza, there was a woman, davu mifkidi gaba, where someone had entrusted to her meluga dishtare. Don't get confused by the language of melug. From nichse melug, it's not. Melug means a collection of shtaros. So there was a guy, she was a safety deposit box. She was a banker. She had these lock boxes in her house. Somebody said, hey, can you please hold on to these 15 shtaros for me? And she said, sure, no problem. And then the guy died. Asu yorshim and katavi lemina. So the yorshim knock on the door. They say, hi, we're the descendants of so-and-so. We know that he left some of his shtaros in your house. We're here to get those shtaros so that we can get money that's due to us, because those shtaros we're able to use to collect. So what happened? Amra, she says to the family members, Mechaim tfisna lahu. I actually took some of those shtaros for myself because he owed me money as well. So I'm holding some of those shtaros, and I took them while he was alive. And then the Yorshim were stuck because they didn't know what the din was. We know, and we've already learned in the previous plot, that if someone is tofes as a Baal Chov Mechayim, when the person who owes them money is alive, that's good. That's good for them. And the Yorshim also should have rights. So they were stuck. They went to go ask a Shiloh. So Asa l'kamid de Rabbi Nachman, halfway down. Amar le islach sade de tivauha minich mechayim velo yavis nehale. Are there witnesses where you went to go try and get paid from him, but he wouldn't pay you while he was still alive? Amra le lo, she said no. Im kain, the Rav says back to her, Im kain habatfisa de la achar misa, utfisa de la achar misa lo klumhi. Sorry, no witnesses, no Nest cameras, nothing. You're done. There are no witnesses to say that you actually tried to claim money. All of a sudden, when the Yorshim show up, you're like, I grabbed them when he was alive. You look like a liar, and because you can't substantiate your claim, you lose, and that means all of those shtaros go back to the Yorshim, and the woman who was the gatekeeper, she loses out.
So is the shtar always on whoever holds it? Or is it Daf Phil Karesh lent Alan Weissman the money? Or it's, you gave it to David Merzel, and now it's David Merzel's.
I'm lost in your mushal. So.
Yeah, Alan Weissman confused me too.
I don't know who Alan is.
The text Weissman.
In this example, let's say that I'm the person who owns 10 shtaros.
Right.
I am owed money by Chaim, and I'm owed money by Yaakov, and I'm owed money by Asher. And I take all of those and I put them in Chana's house. So Chana says, I'm just holding them. The Yorshim knock on the door. And then she says, I'm going to go collect from Chaim and Asher and Yaakov.
No, that's what I'm saying. So the contract is between, let's say,
between me
Yaakov,
and third parties.
right?
And she's just the gate. She just has the safety deposit box.
Right. But then can you use that?
Who's the you?
Phil.
Yeah.
Because you're the lender. in
I'm
this
the lender.
situation,
Yeah.
Okay. Can you use that asset to pay something else?
You can, but in this case, the lender died. So that's why the Yorshim showed up. Of course you can.
If it's
We'll see in a minute. You're allowed to sell that shtar as a collectible.
so it's whoever holds that star.
Whoever holds the shtar, correct.
Is the rep-
It's an IOU. It's like cash in hand. In theory, it's cash in hand. In theory. Okay. Next, there was a woman, and she had to make a shvua to say that she didn't owe somebody money in the bezdin of Rava. Amra le bas Rav Chizda. Bas Rav Chizda, the daughter of Rav Chizda, married Rava. So Rava was the dayan. Rava must have been talking over Thursday night chalent with his wife, and they were talking, and she said, Yadana ba dechashuda ashvua. The woman who is making a shvua in bezdin, don't make her make a shvua. I know she's a dishonest person. So Rava's wife says to Rava, the Baal Din in your bezdin, Chana, whatever her name is, she is not trustworthy. She lies through her teeth. So what did Rava do as a response? He took the comment of his wife, and he embraced it and said, "Afcha Rava l'shvua asher kenegda." Instead of saying that this woman needs to make a shvua that she doesn't owe money, we make the other person make a shvua that Chana does owe money. We flip the shvua to the other person because this woman was not trustworthy based on the testimony of Rav Chizda's daughter, who was Rava's wife. And then Zimnin, a time later, another story happened, and this case gets thrown back in the face. Says the Gemara, Habu Yasve, Kame Rav Papa, the Rav Ada Bar Masna. Rav Papa and Rav Ada Bar Masna were sitting in front of Rava in Bezdin. I saw Hushtara Gabe, and this star shows up in Bezdin. Amar le Rav Papa. Rav Papa looks at the star and says, Yodana be the star priyahu. I know that this star is already paid. I witnessed it, whatever the case may be. What is Rava, who's the head dayan? He's the Rosh Bezdin. What does he say back to Rav Papa? Amar le Ika inish achrina bahadei demar. Was there somebody else with you so that we have the testimony of two and not the testimony of one? Amar Leilo, he says, no. Rav Papa says it was just me, but I'm telling you, I know that it's a star priyahu. I know that it's already paid. So Amar Le, Rava says, Afal gav ikamar eid echad. Even though you, Rav Papa, my master, even though you are considered one aid, still lav klumhu, because you're not two aidim. So then Rav Papa gets a little, well, not Rav Papa, the other person gets a little snarky. Amar Le Rav Ada Bar Masna. Papa, don't you remember 2 minutes ago when you told us the story, Rava, that your wife, she told you that this woman wasn't a bas shavua. All of a sudden you believe her and you change the shua because she's 1/8. But when Rav Papa comes along to say, no, I know this is a star priya, you don't trust him, you need 2 edim? That's a great question. What is the ne'emanus of one person to throw a wrench into the Bezdin system?
Cases don't.
But there's not the same thing.
Right.
Not the same cases, but the Gemara doesn't care about that.
All he did was flip things around. He didn't believe her for anything. He just took her concern. Is that what you're gonna ask? Right. He took her concerns and flipped, but he still required a show off.
So one he's testifying that he knows about it. And the other one is the wife is telling him she's not gonna be honest. It's not apples to apples.
So in the shvua, this is not raised. Your question is not raised by the Gemara. Your question is not raised by the Gemara. But let's talk out the distinction. In the case of Bas Rav Chizda, she raised a concern. She said that woman is not trustworthy. Her shvua is garbage. So how did Rava respond? He said, my wife might be right, and my wife might not be right. But to keep everybody safe and to not set up this woman to make a shvua that's a total sheker, I'm going to make the other person make a shvua. What happened in the other case? In the other case, Rav Papa says, I know that this star is already paid. Which is
one's Avis and one is hearsay. I don't know what the
exactly what it is.
I don't know what's in
Shock. Fancy, the fancy way, right? Right. That's all that it is. The concern.
The Gemara doesn't agree with either of you, and let's learn the answer. Obviously, the Gemara doesn't agree with you because otherwise it would have been. Yeah, but let's see the Gemara's answer because I think we can extract a gem here. The Gemara says 2/3 of the way down. Bas Rav Chizda, says Rava. Bas Rav Chizda kimli begava. My wife, the daughter of Chizda, my wife kimli begava. I hold of her. However, Mar lo kimli begave. But when it comes to Rav Papa, I don't hold of him. Now, what he really meant here was the level of ne'emanus. Like there are some people who are so trustworthy that not one word will come out of their mouth that isn't emes. There are people like that. Chaim Kanievsky, that's how he used to write about this in his Svarim. He said, emes is your measuring stick. If you never lie, you'll never do averas because someone's going to say to you, did you do an avera? But if you're always filled with emes, you'll never do an avera because you're going to have to answer that question. Did you speak Lashon Hara this week? Your kid, you're going to come home. The kids are going to say to you, did you say something not nice on the phone? Or I saw you text something that you shouldn't have texted. Or you told me that you weren't using your phone when I saw it in front of your Gemara. Cute, right? The kids pick up. So here, that's what the Gemara says, is that he trusts his wife completely. But Rav Papa, a little cold. Shver. It's shver if it's edus. It's shver if it's edus. Unless what's happening here is this is not edus, this is like a gilui milsa, which is, we've had that language in Shas before. So here, this is where we would need Rishonim to understand the case. This is like a great example where we would have to stop and get Rashi, Tosfos, the Ritva, the Rashba, the Rush, and really just dig into understanding. I do. I don't know when. I don't know why you have no plans. I gotta go to bed soon. This is late. We got Marv in 34 minutes, and all right, let's go. So that's what the Gemara says. But then Rav Papa picks up on the line of reasoning, and he says as follows: Amar Rav Papa, well, look at this. Hashta de Amar Mar Kimli Bigave Milsahi. Now that we know that this idea of Kimli Bigava, that I really trust you, that's valid in regards to introducing concerns in a bezdin. That's Kegon Abba Marberi de Kimli Bigave. That Abba Marberi, he says about him, Karana Shtara Apume. I would tear up a star just based on his own words, because Kimli Bigave. Says the Gemara, really? Karana Sal Kadaita? Really tear up a star in Bezdin? So says the Gemara, no. Ella Mirana Shtara Apume. Mirana, we can make a star bad, or as we would say in the learning world, you can generate a reusa, you can generate a concern, a significant concern. This also gives us back to the previous parts of the sugya. What we're doing is raising concerns here. This really isn't edus. We're not giving proper edus. We're saying, wait a minute, something's awry here, something's not right. And do we trust her? Her we trust because Kimli Begava. Rav Papa, lo Kimli Begave. Him, I'm a little bit hesitant. Abba Bar Mari, I trust him too. Not enough to tear up a star, but enough to register his concern. So we have to make this distinction between edus and reisa, edus and bringing a concern. Okay. But yeah, I like your question more than I like my answer, because I
think the answer shows that we have a misunderstanding.
We 100%. That's what I was saying before, is that the Gemara is revealing that we're not talking about edus.
Karana is what it sounds like.
No, I think that is the answer. It can't be edus, because otherwise the Gemara doesn't flow. It doesn't work.
Correct. Unless it's eid echad, but then it's eid echad only if I believe you. That's not so pashut. That's not how edus works. Edus works if you're a tzaddik. Like if you're not a Russia, then you can be an aid. So as long.
Problem with this about not trusting the wife, not trusting the brother, not trusting the papa. I mean, that's.
I think Chad, she's on obviously trusting her papa. She's on an unusually high level.
Either that, or he knows every inflection of her voice. Like he knows everything. Yeah, it's a compliment to her. It's not a denigration of him. I agree to that as well. I felt the same way when I first learned this. 4 lines before the wide lines, another story. Rav Bibi Bar Abaye. This woman had to make a shua in a bezdin, and it was in the bezdin of Rav Bibi Bar Abaye. Amar lehu hahu baldin, the person who was forcing her to make a shua, the guy who thought that she owed money, he said, Tasi visishtaba bimata, let her come back to my hometown, extradition, let her come back to my hometown to make the shua. Efshar de michsafa, maybe there because she knows the dayan, and she'll be a little embarrassed to modia, and she'll actually admit to her crime. He was really sure and confident about his side of the claim. So says the Gemara, Amra lahu, she said to the Bezdin in this current city where she is right now, listen, I'm going to make that shua, but do me a favor, kisvuli zachvasa, I want you to write me that I have been cleared of all wrongdoing, please. Write it for me now, even though it hasn't happened yet, because then once it's going to be the case that I make this shua, and I will when I go back to my hometown, because I think I'm right, yavali, then I'll be able to be scot-free. Amar lehu Rabibi Bar Abaye kasvulam. No problem. You're allowed to write a shtar now that she's innocent, even though she hasn't made the shvua yet. So we have Bezdin number 1 in location A. We have Bezdin number 1. In Bezdin number 1, she says, just write me the shtar that I'm innocent, and it won't be employed until I make my shvua in Bezdin number 2. No. The Gemara is bothered by this. Just, yeah. What you're feeling is what everybody, that's correct. So Amar Rav Papi says, Mishum de asisu mimuloi amrisamili mulyasa, because you come from a place of hunchbacks, you speak like a hunchback. You all of a sudden just get to make a claim that you get to write a shtar that says, this is what you're saying, you get to write a shtar that says she's innocent. She hasn't made her shvua yet. Now this word hunchback is literal, but it actually isn't referring to the fact that this person's a hunchback. It's referring to the fact that he is from the family of Eli. It's a reference to this curse that existed in the family of Eli, and Abaye was from the family of Eli. And all the men of Eli, until a certain point in history, died at a very young age. So it was just a catchphrase that was being used here. Just because you're going to die young means you get to say whatever you want. That's not how this works. You can't write a star that says that she's innocent until she makes that shvuah. That's what the Gemara is concerned with. Says the Gemara, after all, Ha'amar Rava, don't we have another source that's similar to this? Hi, Ashrisa Dedaina, there was a bezin that was verifying documents, and Demichtava, and they wrote it, Mikame Denachvu Sadech Simas Yadaihu, and no one had verified the signatures yet. What's the status right now of that document? Psula. Even though all the information is 100% correct, but it's not verified yet. Alma, what do we see? Mechse Kishikra. It looks like a lie, because we haven't verified the signatures yet. It's kind of like getting a notary to sign something. Until it's signed, it's not really relevant. Hachanami, in our case too. How can you write a star, Rav Bibi Bar Abaye? How can you write a star now that says she's all innocent? She hasn't even gone to the second bezin yet to make her shvuah. Hachanami mechse kishikra. Looks like you're lying. Says the Gemara, don't worry, Velesa. Really, this isn't a concern. Why not? Mida Rav Nachman. What does Rav Nachman say? 5 lines from the bottom. Dam Rav Nachman. Omer Haya Rav Meir. Afilu mitzopa ashpa v'chasmu v'nasnu lakasher. If you find a get in the garbage, and it has all of the right names in it, your Hebrew name, Ben, your father's Hebrew name, your wife's Hebrew name, perfectly. Lemishpachas, perfect. All the dates are right. All the cities are right. Perfect get. The sofer was just practicing, and he threw it in the garbage when he was done, never used. So Reb Meir says, you can pick that up, go over to your wife and say, Shalom, take care. Here's your ksuba, goodbye. That's a kosher get. Now, says the Gemara, Ve'afilu Rabbanan, even according to the Rabbanan who disagree with Reb Meir, they only argue lo pligia leder Meir ela begite nashim. The only get that they're actually concerned about is gite nashim, not a get shichror, not any other kind of get creases, just by women, because by women, debo'inan ksiva lishma, we'll learn about this in Maseches getting in tremendous depth, that a get has to be written lishma. If there are two couples that have the same exact details, so then one get doesn't work for either couple. It has to be written lishma for couple X. Even if they have all the same names, doesn't matter. The get has to be written lishma. Fine. But l'maisa aval b'shar shtaro, says the Gemara, module. Even the Chachamim would agree to Rav Meir that is actually considered a valid star. Let's add in one more maribako. The Amar Ravasi, 2 lines from the bottom. Amar Rav Yochanan, star she lova bo upero, a star that was used for a loan and it was paid. You cannot again use the same document. You're not allowed to use the same document again because the lien that was on that document is now dissolved. And the Gemara makes a deal. The reason why that document can't be used is because the lien that was created by that document is no longer present. Aval, as we turn to the top of Pehem and Beis, we're not actually worried about the michse keshikra, and therefore, in conclusion, the Gemara allows Rav Bibi Bar Abaye to write this document in advance of her making a shvuah on Bezdin number 2 to say, yes, she's really innocent. It's not really keshikra because it's in the works. We do this with a ksuba all the time. We pre-write a ksuba, we pre-sign a ksuba. There was no kedushin yet. Everything is under the chuppah by us. So we don't. It's all a sheker. It's all mechse keshikra. But it's fine. It's fine. We allow the star to be predated. What?
In this case, for her to lie.
Tremendous reason for her to lie.
Something out of the garbage, or using something that's already been used already once. There's not as much of a desire behind it to falsify a document. Here, for the real reason for her to lie.
No, but the bezin, I believe. I hear your question, and I thought of it when I was trying to figure this out. I believe that in this star, it says that she made a shvuah in bezin number 2. I believe so. I think it has to be that way. Let me just make sure about that, but I'm pretty sure that that's the case. I don't know. It was the only way it made sense to me, but yeah. Okay. Top of Pehem and Beis. Oh, we really don't have a lot of time. Let's move a little quicker here. Hahu Gavra de Ivkid Shev Marganisa de Tsairi Bisadina. There was a man who put into a storage box 7 pearls that were wrapped up in a silk garment. Very specific functions, very specific details, excuse me. And where were they left? In Bei Rabbi Mesha Bar Beret, the grandson of Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi. So early on, we're right. Shachiv Rav Mesha v'lo pakid. Rav Mesha died, and he left no instructions about what to do with this. Asu l'kamid de Ravami. They went over to Ravami. Amar Le, because his Yorshim came to say that this must be somebody else's. It belongs to some guy. It doesn't belong to Rav Mesha. Amar Le Chada the Adana baby Rav Mesha Bar Bered Rav Yeshua ben Levi de Lo Amid. This guy had no money. He was completely destitute. So there's no way that he owned these 7 pearls. He would have sold them many times over to pay for food. The Ode, and furthermore, Hakayev Simona, the guy who came over said, I know that my father left 7 pearls. They were wrapped up. He gave very specific details. Now, when do we use this logic? Only if the person who left the pearls there was not a regular in that house. Had he been a regular, a person who regularly goes there and he spends time there, maybe somebody else left it and he saw it with his own 2 eyes and he was lying. So if you're a regular, you can't make this claim. You have to be a non-regular to make this claim. Logically speaking, it's very believable. Like, let's say you're only there once a year. And then after the person dies, his kids come and be like, I know my father isn't a regular here, but he actually did leave something here with all the details. Logically, we would feel pretty comfortable about that. And a similar story. He left a cup of silver in the home of Chasa. And Shachiv Chasa then died below Pakid. We didn't know what to do with this cup. And then some of the Yorshim showed up. Also the Kamid Rav Nachman and Amar Lahu. Rav Nachman said, Yadana be bechasa de lo amid. We know that Chasa was also very poor. A common theme among some of the greats, although there were some who were wealthy. We know that Rebbe was wealthy and Rabbi Eliezer was wealthy. There were some. Anyways, we know he's not wealthy. The Ode Hakayav Simana. We know the family said, it says the person's Hebrew name is etched into the silver, whatever the case may be. And then the same qualification as the previous case. Below Amran, when do we employ this logic? Only if the person is not a regular visitor there. If the person was a regular in the house where the cup was entrusted, so then in that case, we're concerned that he just may be seeing everything all the time. Oh, I see this guy coming with a silver cup. Let me keep it in my notebook for when he dies, because then I can just say that it's mine. Next, another similar case. Hahu de ifkid matkisa. This person entrusted some type of silk garment. Silk was considered particularly expensive. Now we can buy silk ties, $7 a pop. It suits 2020. They're nothing to buy silk. They're very inexpensive. And where was this entrusted? Bei Rav Dimi achva de Rav Safra, in the house of Rav Dimi, who was the brother of Rav Safra. Shachiv Rav Dimi v'lo pakid. Rav Dimi died and left no instructions about what to do with this silk garment. Asa l'kamed Rabbi Abba. What did Rabbi Abba say? Amar lehu chada diadana baby Rabbi Dimi delo amid. We know that he had no money. Identical case. V'od hakayav simana. The family showed up and they said it's a paisley pattern. It's blue and it's yellow. Fine. And v'lo amran. When do we employ this logic? Only ela delo ragil da'al v'nafik lahasam. Only if the person isn't a regular. Aval ragil da'al v'nafik lahasam. But if the person was a regular, then we may not trust him because maybe somebody else was the one who left it there, and really this person just saw it. Another case, Hahuda Amar Lahu Nichse Latuvia. A person is on their deathbed. They say, I'd like to give all of my proceeds to a person named Tuvia, with no family name, no details, no Tudat Zahud, nothing. Shachib, the guy dies. Asa Tuvia, this random guy named Tuvia walks up and says, hi, I'm Tuvia. Can I please have all the proceeds? Amar Rav Yochanan, Hare ba Tuvia. Yes, absolutely. The first Tuvia who shows up, he gets it. That's an unbelievable thing, but that's what it is. What if Amar Tuvia v'asa Rav Tuvia? The guy who's about to die says only someone named Tuvia. The person who shows up is a Rav. His name is Rav Tuvia. So it says the Gemara, L'Tuvia Amar, L'Rav Tuvia Lo Amar. The person who gets it is Tuvia. And says the Gemara, if it's a person that he really likes, in other words, someone that they call on a first name basis, then Hagispe, and then that's considered appropriate, and we would call him, even the Rav Tuvia would be considered Tuvia, and then he would be able to collect the assets as well. It's a scenario where he specified where the money is going to. He has his halachic obligations. The Gemara is now going to debate what you just asked. Very good. The Gemara is going to ask that. Asu Shnei Tuvia. Let's say that there were 2 people whose names were Tuvia. One was a Shachain and one was a Talmud Chacham. Shachin v'talmid chacham. If those are your two options, so you got two guys knocking on the door. Hello, my name is Tuvia. No, my name is Tuvia. One of them is a neighbor, and one of them is a talmid chacham. The Gemara says talmid chacham kodem. We presume that the mace would want the money to go to the talmid chacham. What about Stan's question? Karov a talmid chacham. Let's say that you have a relative and a talmid chacham. That's an easy one. Talmid chacham kodem. Ibaylahu. What about the following? Shachain v'karov mine. What if you have a neighbor whose name is Tuvia, and the first cousin that Stan was referring to, his name is also Tuvia? Who do we give to? Toshma. The Brisa writes, Tov shachain karov me'ach rachok. A close neighbor is better than a distant brother. Not something that you'd want to tell your brother, but what? Are you joking? Get out of here. On the brown one?
The white one?
Tov shachin karov me'ach rachok.
That's not a coat shopping for sure.
What's his brother gonna say?
The other side too, your Ruby side, right? Oh, yeah.
You'll check.
A big family machlokas right now. Oh, we're poking the beehive today. Yeah. Wow. Okay.
We'll have to check it out.
What about Shnehem Krovim, V'Shnehem Shchenim, V'Shnehem Chachamim? What if they had identical profiles? They're both neighbors, they're both cousins, they're both whatevers. Then Shuda Dedaini, a phrase that we'll see now more and more frequently throughout Shas. Shuda Dedaini means it is the judgment of the judge. He gets to decide. It's more arbitrary. It's more based on the features of those cases than it will be based on a principle. Like in all the other cases, we had a principle. Talmid Chacham is greater than a Kara. This is no principle. They're the same. So then the judge has to say, well, this guy goes out to lunch 6 times a month with his cousin and only once a month with this cousin. So then we're going to give it to the guy for the 6. He has to use his own judgment. Amar le Rava lebrei de Reb Chia bar Avin. Taimelach milsam al yusa de hava amar avucha. I want to tell you something beautiful that your father used to say. Hada amar Shmuel, when Shmuel used to say, hamocher shtar chov lechavero v'chazar umachal umachul. So let's just get the case first. Hamocher shtar chov lechavero means I have a shtar that upon which I can collect money, and I sell it to you. This shtar is worth $1,000. I'll sell it to you for 80 cents on the dollar. Here, that's good money for you. Fine, that's the case. But once I sell it to you, so I'm giving it to you, but really the person who owes me money is over there. And then I say machal. Then I say machal. I don't. You don't need to pay me back anymore. So the halacha is that shtar just became ash, totally zero. That's the case here. Let's read it again. So in the case of hamocher shtar chov lechavero, I sell you a shtar that's collectible. I sell it to you, and then v'chazar machlo. But then I go back to the borrower and I say, you know what? You're a sweetheart of a guy. Don't worry about it. The halacha is that it's machal v'afilu yoresh machal. A yoresh can do the same exact thing. So what did Shmuel say? Modeh Shmuel b'machneses shtar chov lebayla. That somebody who brings in a shtar chov to her husband, v'chazra umachalto she'eno machal mipnei sheyado ki yada. That once she brings it into the marriage, she can no longer be mochel. The shtar before she got married was exactly that. It was a shtar that was collectible, and she could have done mechila. But once she gets married, mipnei sheyado ki yada, because he and she now are sharing this bank account. It's really not what the logic is. The logic is that her money is his money. So therefore, she can no longer be mocheles. She no longer has the right because she's not the only party who matters. Now the husband matters also. Krivte de Rav Nachman, zvinte leksubasa betovas hana. There was a relative of Rav Nachman who sold her ksuba for a very small amount of money. That's what Rashi says 10 lines from the bottom. B'dibra maskil, betovas hana davar muat. Just a small amount of money. The ksuba was 200. She sold it for 20, whatever it was. And then igrisha ushchiva. And then the woman got divorced, and then the woman died, and her daughter took over. And asu katave lebrata. And then there were people who were collecting from that ksuba, from that money. They were trying to collect money from the daughter. Her mother had owed money. So they said to her, Amar lahu, they said, I don't understand. Amar lahu Rav Nachman, leka de lispa la etza. Someone should give the daughter the following etza. Because we learned that a Yerusha, that a woman who's Yoreshes is able to dissolve alone, even a yoresh can dissolve, can be mochel on her mother's ksuba. So therefore the Gemara says tezel, the daughter should go, the tichla, and she should be mocheles, like ksuvasa de ima, legabe avua. She should say, my father no longer owes my mother the ksuba. And then the father gets to keep the money. And then when the father dies, the daughter is yoreshes the money through the father's side. And then there's no one who can get any money from the mother's side. Brilliant move. So it says the Gemara, Shama, what?
Why is she a Resh?
Betirsa mine. She's yoresh from the father when he dies, not me, no.
Why didn't the daughter know?
Oh, no, so that's the case here, is that they were just creating a case where she could get the money in a circuitous way.
Right, but she's not Yorish.
She is in this case.
How so?
She must not have had brothers. I mean, the case that they're painting over here. I didn't look in the Rishonim here, but that has to be the case. Let's see if Rashi says that. Doesn't say. It seemed assumed in the case, but she was able to be Yoreshes the money through her father's side.
She divorced, but her family when she died.
That's a difference.
That's different, right?
Yeah, that's a difference because she can't be Mocheles the Ksuba while her mother's still alive. Yeah, that would be a big difference.
No, Rashi says the case is different.
What?
The case is that she sold the ksuba, the ima shelzo, rachel lahen shtarcho shavel al bala.
Yeah.
What are they trying to?
No. They, yeah, of course
The
she.
mother had sold off the ksuba to these guys, and now they're coming looking for money. Let her just be mochalos the whole thing. As the.
No, the Ima, her mother's just simply sold them a shtar chov. She just owed them money. And then when the ksuba came into play and then she died, the ksuba was money. They're like, oh, she died. Let's go collect from her ksuba. Great. And then the daughter said, no. I was mochel on that. So my father doesn't have to pay my mother a ksuba. My father keeps the money. And then she became.
The theory is that she'll get money.
The theory is she'll get the money through the father. So that's what she did. So Shama, she heard this idea in Azlan and Achilta, and she was mocheles her father's ksuba to her mother, and therefore the father kept the money, and there was no money for these people to collect from for the mother. Fine. Amar Rav Nachman, asinu atzmenu ke'orche hadayonim. He was kind of the slap to the forehead move. He's like, this, it's icky. It's not a good move. He was unhappy with himself. Asks the Gemara, why is that? Why are you upset that you made yourself into this into this lawyer? What's the deal here? Meikara my savar ulvisof my savar. So it says the Gemara, Meikara savar mi b'sar chaloti salem. She's family. That's how the case opened. 2 lines from the bottom. Kriv Teder of Nachman. Rav Nachman says she's family. Ulvisof savar adam chashav shani. But I'm a chashav rav. I'm a rav in the community. I live at a higher standard. There's no reason why I should be coming up with these sneaky. That doesn't pass the smell test. Is it mutter? It's mutter. It's mutter, but it doesn't pass the smell. Not for a Rav Nachman, and he knows himself. You have to know where you are. You have to know if you're an Orthodox Jew, you're wearing a kippah, you're a Talmid Chacham. Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter how smart you are, how knowledgeable you are. You're automatically a Talmid. So he's a Chashav Rav. He's a Rav of Bezdin. So he said it's pasnish for me to do such a thing. What time is it? All right, let's push to the next 2 dots here. Gufa, we had just learned this case of Amar Shmuel HaMocher Shtarchov the Chaver v'Chazer Machla Machol v'Afilu Yoresh Mochel, that we had said that if I had a star and the star was collectible and I sell it to you, that I can be mochel behind the scenes. Amar Rav Huna Berei de Rav Yoshua v'Ipikeachu. If the person was a real pikeach, you who bought this collectible star from me, if you were a smart guy, mekarkash le zuze v'kasav l'shtari b'shmei, he would throw a couple of zuz at me and rewrite the star without the other person's name in it, so no mechila could take place. It's a good move. He says, okay, 80 cents on the dollar, so 80 cents on the dollar for 200 zuz is 160. Let's throw out that star, and you're just going to give me 160. Okay, are we good? And we just rewrite the star, because then the mechila is irrelevant, because it's a new star. Brilliant move. Amar Ameimar, man dedoin dina degarmi, megabe be demei shtara me'alya. In a case where someone causes a loss, this is a very important idea in regards to Nezikin. There's this concept called garmi, and garmi is where you cause me loss. Through this move, there is now a case scenario where someone is going to lose money. So the Gemara says in the name of Ameimar, if I cause you to not be able to collect money, am I able to be punished? So says the Gemara, according to the one who holds of Garmi, who is Dain Dina de Garmi, we hold that you're responsible for causing for someone to not be able to collect. Then yes, Megabe Bei Dmei Shtar Me'alya, you have to pay the whole shtar. Man de lo Dain Dina de Garmi, but someone who holds that me causing you to not be able to collect money really isn't a loss. Megabe Bei Dmei Niyara Be'alma. It's just literally the paper itself. It's nothing. It's just pennies. And Hava Uvda Vakafia Rafram the Ravashi, there was a case scenario, and Rafram and Ravashi, they rallied around Ravashi. Rashi points out, and they all forced him, as Rashi says, with Rayas to hold Dina de Garmi, and because it was Garmi, because they were now of the opinion that if I cause you to not be able to collect it, you're therefore held accountable. Then they collected every penny of this very special beam, which was the case that they were dealing with. Okay, let's learn a little bit more and then we'll stop. If there's a person who owes money to two people, he has a ksuva for a wife, and he has people who he owes money to, regular balchov, v'isla ara v'isla zuze, and he has two different types of monies. One is land and one is zuz. Lebalchov misalkinan lebezuze, we pay off the balchov with coins, and leisha misalkinan laba'ara, and the woman we pay back with property. Hai kidine, but hai kidine, each person according to their own way. That's the right way to pay them back. Let's say he only has one plot of land, and it's only valued enough to pay back one of the two people. The halacha is, strangely, lebal chov yahavin le. So he owes his wife money, and he owes the bal chov money. The halacha is that he pays the bal chov, and leisha lo yahavin le. My taima, says the Gemara, and I don't understand this. Yoser mi masha ish rotze lisa isha masha ish rotze lisa isha rotze lihinase. More than a man wants to marry, a woman wants to marry. In other words, she's more willing to, seemingly what it seems from the Gemara, is she's more willing to forego that which she is already owed. Take a look at Rashi. Rashi's about 15 lines from the bottom. Yoser meish rotze v'lo chayshinan lomar mishum china, picking up on a question we raised earlier, that we had said that it's important for a woman to get paid her ksuba because of chen. That doesn't apply here. The dafka hashtaros nichtivu biyom echad, aval im kadma zman ksuba hi gova. The Rashi adds in a couple of qualifications here. If her ksuba predates the balchov, then she gets the money. This is only a scenario when the shtar was written identically for both the balchov and the woman on the same day. The day she got married is the day that he received a loan, and he had to pay back both of them. Only in that scenario does the balchov come first. Otherwise, the isha comes first. Okay, just a little bit more. Says the Gemara, Amar le Rav Papa le Rav Chama. Vadai, is it in fact true, Damrisu Mishmei de Rava, that you said the following in the name of Rava, that Haiman Damaski Bezuze, somebody who owes money to another person, Bisla Ara, and he has land, Va'asa Balchov, and the person who had lent the money comes and Vikotava Mine, and he says, I want the land. Va'amar le Zil Shkol Me'ara, you can take the land. Do we say, Amrinan le Zil Zavin At Va'isi Havle, do you, the lender, have to sell the land to get cash and pay him back with cash? Do you have to do that? Says the Gemara, Amar Lo, you misunderstood. He says, fine, if I misunderstood, please explain it to me. Please explain it to me. Emali gufa de uvda hechihaba. What actually happened? Amar Le, the case that you heard about, that you misunderstood, was a case of Tolema Osa va'oved kochavim haba. There was a person, some guy came over to me and said, Phil, you owe me money. And I said, no, the money belongs to the guy. My neighbor, the guy, it's not mine. We're in a business deal together. So says the Gemara, hu asa shelo kahogen, he lied, he did something that wasn't right, and therefore lefichach asu bo shelo kahogen, they made it difficult for him. It was a slap on the wrist. That if you're going to play all these shenanigans, then we're going to make your life a little bit more difficult. That's not yashar. And then they forced him to, in fact, cash out his property and then pay him out with cash. We'll stop right here at Amar Le Rav Kahana. We'll pick up on Shabbos after the 2:30 mincha at approximately 2:50. Wishing you all a beautiful night.